Hi, it's Liz Nedden. Let's have a look at how to draw graphs using the gradient intercept method. So all straight lines have this general form, y equals mx plus c. And in that equation, the m is our gradient and the c value is our y-intercept. So the gradient, the value of m, tells us how steep the line is, whether it's quite a low steep slope or whether it's quite steep. Or whether it's going up or whether it's going down. The plus c tells us in terms of our y-axis, it tells us the position that it cuts through that y-axis. So a positive gradient means it's going upwards, negative going down. So if our gradient is bigger than 0, then we've got a line going upwards. If the gradient is less than 0, the line's going down. Another name for the gradient intercept method is our rise over run. And so there's this definition of gradient, which is rise over run. So if I talk about our rise, rising up and running along, that would then tell us how steep the line is by measuring those two things. So the rise, if it's positive, we go up, negative, we go down. If the run is positive, you go to the right, negative, you go to the left. And so the rise is talking about our y-axis, so that's rising up or rising down, and run talking about going along our x-axis. So let's have a look at some examples. If I've got the graph here, y equals 2 over 3x minus 4, and I want to draw this graph. So the first thing I do is I need to look in the equation, I need to look for the variable x, and in this case now I want to find the coefficient, or the number in front of. So the coefficient of x is 2/3. So that is my gradient, is 2/3. So that means in terms of this definition of gradient being rise over run, the rise is 2, the run is 3. So to get from one point to the next, you rise up by 2 units and you run along by 3 units. So I want to, from any particular point, I want to jump up by 2 and I want to jump along by 3. So I want to rise up by 2 and run along by 3. That would be my gradient. So let's look at putting this together. So start with your y-intercept, because that gives you like the starting point. So in my equation, the number by itself, that is your y-intercept. So in this case, the y-intercept is -4. So my starting point is I'm starting on my y-axis. So when x is 0, y is -4. So that gives me the coordinate point right there. So now to go on to the next point, I need to rise up by 2 units and run across by 3 units. So let me just change the difference. So what I want to do is I want to go up by 2 units. So I'm going to jump 2 units up. That would take me to there. And now I'm going to run across by 3 units. 1, 2, 3. That takes me to this location here. So that is my next coordinate. And I'm going to put that in blue there. And so I want to draw a line, then do the same thing. I want to go up by 2. So I'm going to go up by 2 units and along by 3 units, and that gets me to my next coordinate. So that gives me 3 points, which I then draw a straight line through, put the arrows on, and write my equation y equals 2 over 3x take away 4. And that's my equation. So have a look at another example. So I've got the graph of y equals -x plus 4. So looking at this, the gradient, so the gradient, that's my coefficient of x. So in this case, the coefficient is -1. So that's my gradient. My gradient is -1. So in terms of that, in terms of a rise over run, I can always divide any number by 1. So I'm going to divide that by 1. What's that done? Get over there. So, go away. That's going to give me a gradient of -1 over 1. So to get from one point to the next, I rise down by -1. So it's minus, so I'm going to go down, and run, I'm going across 1 unit to the right. So I start with my y-intercept, so my number by itself is 4. So that means my starting coordinate x is 0, y is 4. So that's going to cut my y-axis here at 4. To get to the next point, I'm going to move down by 1 unit and across by 1 unit. So I go down by 1 and across by 1. That takes me to my next coordinate. Then down by 1, across by 1. Down by 1, across by 1. Down by 1, across by 1. And then I'm going to draw a line through those points, put arrows on the ends, and y equals minus x plus 4. Let's have a look at a third example. So this one, I've got my equation y equals 5 over 3x, take away 5. So my gradient is the coefficient of x. So in this case, the number in front of x is 5 over 3. So my gradient, rise over run, 5 over 3. So I want to be able to rise upwards by 5 units and run along by 3 units. So rise up by 5 and move, that should say rise up by 5 units and run along by 1 unit. So putting that together, start with your y-intercept, so the number by itself. So my y-intercept is at -5, and that's my starting point. X is 0, y is -5. So it's going to cut through my y-axis at -5. So to get to my next point, I move up by 5 units and run across by 3. So I'm going to go up by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and across by 3. 1, 2, 3. Then I would do the same thing, and I'm going to draw a line with a ruler, better than mine, with some arrows on the end, and I'm going to write my equation y equals 5 over 3x, take away 5. Thanks very much for watching.